light in the name of peace and reconciliation. As the German deputy noted, Willy Brandt even received the Nobel Peace Prize for this. The slogan never again meant refusing to supply weapons to the conflict zones. This has always been the core of German foreign policy, said the German deputy. Everyone entered their names in history in different ways. In Germany itself, they are well aware that Berlin has no moral, legal, or ethical right to supply armored vehicles and tanks, so they kill Russians. You know, the Russians say, are there very few video footage that even in the ranks of Ukraine, the guys zombified by the Kiev regime, and many of them were pushed to the front line because they were caught all over Ukraine by these Nazis, who themselves do not crawl out of bunkers. These the guys also speak Russian. Don't you understand? That people, even members of the same family, they pushed, pitted, they made them, as it is now called, opposing sides. The crack has passed through the mother's heart, because one of her sons is on one side of the barricades, and the second son is on the other. In order to tear Ukraine apart, given its very difficult history, multinational composition in the first years of the independence, that many dreamed of there. But it should begin not with permissiveness, but with responsibility. Now these bloody dividing lines have passed through the hearts of a huge number of people. These regions will again feel the tracks of German tanks. Still, Scholz went for it.
You're in my way.
Why? Let's be honest. Because there are historical figures. And there are dummies. That's all. There are people who are ready for their convictions to go even to certain death. Not because it is pride, and not because they consider themselves exceptional, but because they understand that this is humanity. There are those who have political power, material resources, support, including electoral support. But they lack the spirit to make the right choice. Not to repeat the mistakes of their ancestors, for which, including the people of Germany, they paid a huge price. I want to remind Scholz, I'm not talking about Burbach, that it's useless, but he still hesitated. I want to remind, and maybe tell, he probably doesn't know. When the German prisoners were on the territory of the Soviet Union after our victory, they were not tortured. They were not mocked in the same way as they were mocked at our soldiers and civilians in German concentration camps. They were fed by those who for many years not only lacked, but had nothing to eat. I say this softly. In everyday life, I would say differently. They fed them. You know, Mr. Scholz, my grandmother,
Grandmother, moeder, oma.
supplied with the phrase, the most amazing dish. She told me about it. This post-war bread, which was also lagging, the Soviet people, and in particular she, the Russian, shared with German prisoners who burned our villages, who killed children, driving them into houses and setting them on fire. I asked her once, "Grandmother, but you yourself did not have enough. How could you, having gone through all this, still share bread with those who killed you? Do you know, Mr. Schulz, what my grandmother told me? She told me, Masha, we felt sorry for them. This is not the pity you call tolerance. They felt sorry for them, which means they loved them, which means they had the spiritual strength to share even with the enemy the most necessary things. You in the West have long lost any idea of the true values, which are based on love. It is impossible to believe that the West is now supplying German tanks to places where these tanks have already brought so much trouble and suffering. Having killed tens of millions of people, it is impossible to imagine that you know what love, compassion, honor, conscience, after all. By the way, I remember very well how, a couple of years ago, German Foreign Minister Steinmeier arrived in Volgograd as part of an official delegation. He repented and bowed his head before the graves of both our soldiers and the German soldiers who remained on our land. And he said it should never happen again. You are repeating it now. The day the decision was made on the supply of Leopard tanks to Ukraine, as the German deputy said, is a historic day also because it finally testified, cemented what we have been talking about for a long time. This is Germany's absolute loss of its sovereignty. Scholz signed forever in the rejection of an independent German foreign policy. He abandoned everything. But his predecessors built decades after the Second World War. And in this, by the way, they succeeded. I must say that now we will not be surprised if the places of German Leopard tanks in the Bundeswehr are taken not by new German-made vehicles, but by American Abrams tanks. After all, it is very beneficial to Washington. For you now you cannot ask. Yes. Merkel tried as much as she could to defend and balance between her own national interests and between this wild pressure that the American administration exerted on her and on the people of Germany. In general, Americans always treat an occupied country this way.